Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Casual Criminalist, written by Kevin, read by me. I'm Simon. This is the murder of Anna Repkina. Welcome to the show. I've never read this before. That's the format. Shall we just jump into it then?
Come on! Yeah!
Do you ever wish you had a do-over button? Oh my god, yes, of course. Doesn't everyone? It's like, oh no, I wish I could just go back a few seconds and take back that thing that came out of my mouth, please. I think everyone has this. Or maybe a magic remote that could control time, like in the movie Click, or that one episode of Weird Science. I've seen the movie Click with Adam Sandler. I don't know why. Wasn't it like a failure? Like, it sounds like a flop of a movie. It's a pretty common trope in science fiction stories, so clearly a lot of us would love the ability to instantly reverse time once in a while, and unlike Adam Sandler, would all actually use the remote correctly. I mean, seriously, the dude got a magic remote that gave him power over the flow of time, and he used it to fast forward through time with his family so he could do more work. That doesn't mean you're doing more work. Wait, that doesn't mean you're doing more work. It just means you're skipping some of your life. If I had some sort of magical remote control for time, I would be like, wait, I'd do the whole work day, then you'd rewind it and do the whole work day again. Then you've done twice as much work and then go home and spend time with your family. Boom! Wait, does that undo all the work you've done? I guess you could just have a day thinking. Dude, sometimes I wish I had that. Like, I try to spend time thinking, but it's hard to spend time thinking when you have to record, like, new episodes of Casual Criminalist, and life is in the way, and all of this. I'm going to stop pontificating on remote controls because, for some reason, Kevin's got me talking about that when we're in a Casual Criminalist episode about someone's murder. Sorry. What sort of sociopath does that? How about you freeze time so that you can get your work done and maybe take a quick nap and then enjoy time with your family afterwards like a normal human being? How do you take a cool superpower like that but in the hands of the dumbest person in the world? It would be like creating an entire comic book franchise based around intergalactic soldiers with magic rings that can manifest literally anything they can imagine into reality, and having the main character only use his ring to create things like giant green mousetraps or fishing poles. Yeah, that's a solid use of it. Just pausing it so you can have a nap. Do you get older though? Because I feel that's one concern. Like, if you've paused time, but you're still moving through time, are you getting older? Because if not, then I'd pause time as much as possible, because then you're going to live a long-ass life. But I'm getting off track here. Yes, you are, Kevin. Let's say the ability to reverse time did exist. How much would you be willing to pay for it? A lot. There's no monetary value you could assign to technology like that, as it would be immeasurably more valuable than all the money in the world. So, what if the cost you had to pay was your soul? What are we talking about, Kevin? This is a Casual Criminalist, not like an episode of The Outer Limits or The Twilight Zone. And Simon, before you dismiss that by saying that of course you'd agree because souls aren't real, I would say that, Kevin, just assume that they need to exist in order for this transaction to be possible. Alright, fine. Okay, well, I don't know what a soul does then, Kevin, do I? Regardless of whether or not souls exist, though, backwards time travel does not. Despite his best attempts, today's convicted murderer was unable to go back and stop himself from leaving his house on that fateful day. Wait, is this actually about a guy who tried to go back in time to stop himself committing a murder or something? What? There was no way to undo what he had done, and Anna Repkina's blood will forever be on his hands. Allegedly. That's right, thanks to a retrial being granted on appeal for evidentiary procedural reasons, I still have to say that he is allegedly a murderer. Stupid due process. Wait, Kevin, I have no idea whether that half page of introduction is actually setting this up for a guy who believes he can travel back in time, or it was the weirdest introduction to a Casual Criminalist that I've ever read. Let's see. Looking for love in all the places. It was a typical summer evening. 2015. Michelle Chavez, a 33-year-old taxi driver, was parked outside the Peacock Bar and Grill in Corvallis, Oregon. It was a slow time of year for the area's taxi industry, probably because everybody got the hell out of Oregon for the summer vacations, so she was just waiting outside the bar for somebody to need a ride. Her fare that night was Will Hargrave, a 25-year-old man who was every woman's dream. He was the total package: short, fat, and bald. Kev, steady on. Bald men are extremely desirable, Kevin, I'll have you know. Women are like, oh, so shiny, whistle boy. In fact, Michelle even said that her first thought upon seeing Will was initially, God, he's short. But what Will lacked in good looks, he made up for in charm. Will worked as a mechanic at a nearby car dealership, and he frequently spent his nights at that bar playing pool and drinking with his friends. All of Will's friends thought highly of him, even referring to him as their brother. Part of this was because they were such close friends, but it was also part because of their experience serving in the military. Or at least that's what his friends thought. As it turns out, Will was a bit of a liar, and despite telling his friends that he'd been stationed in Russia, he had never actually served in the military at all. Dude, sure, I feel that lie is going to get caught out real fast, because it's not like serving in the military is some super uncommon thing. It's like, when someone says, like, in a movie where someone's like,
oh yes, well I went to Harvard Law.
and the person who actually went to Harvard Law is like,
Oh yeah, what year?
yeah, like,
1999.
and they're like,
Oh my god, I was there in 98. Did you have Professor so-and-so? They're
like,
yeah.
that sort of thing is going to get called out way less commonly than someone being like, oh wow, what battalion did you serve in? Because lots of people go in the military, not a lot of people go to Harvard Law School. But I guess it was easy to believe the lies that came out of his mouth because he was so charismatic. One of his friends even said that random women at the bar would come up to Will and start chatting him up when they were playing pool because he was just so friendly and personable. Anyway, Will and Michelle quickly hit it off on the drive back. According to Jamie Klotz, Will's roommate at the time and eventually a mutual friend of Will and Michelle, quote, he was willing to give her what she needed, affection, attention. Eventually, that chance encounter at the bar turned into a full-on relationship. That all could have been a very sweet story. There's just a small matter of what happens that night after Michelle dropped Will off. She drove back home to Albany, Oregon, where she lived with her husband and 2 children. Uh-oh, hello. Of course, Michelle said that by that point in her marriage, it was essentially over. She and her husband happened to sleep in the same bed, but they barely even spoke to one another. Even if that was true, her situation was hardly ideal for starting a relationship. But there was a simple solution to make Michelle's life better. If she was happy with Will but unhappy at home, well, why didn't Will just move in then? I don't know, Michelle. Maybe because your husband and children live there, Michelle. Maybe use your brain just a little bit. I don't know. Have you tried that, Michelle? Maybe. Come on. What's going on, Michelle? Get your together, Michelle. In 2016, Will started renting the spare bedroom in their house. Brilliant idea, Michelle. Bring the man you're having an affair with to live in your spare bedroom and don't tell your husband and children. They'll never realize. Which made things easier for their relationship and probably a whole lot harder for the rest of the family. To be clear, nobody seems to know what, if anything, Michelle's husband knew about the reality of this situation. Personally, I find it hard to believe that he could have possibly been oblivious to everything. He's getting cucked so hard. If nothing else, the fact that Will was only paying $300 per month in rent would have been suspicious as fuck. When was this happening? 2016? Yeah, that seems real cheap for America in 2016. That's only like 8 years ago. Average rent in Albany, Oregon is $1,500 right now, and even that is insanely cheap compared to here. Yeah, $1,500 doesn't seem that bad. Like, that is a room in a house. That does seem that's quite expensive for just a room. And if we're being even more specific, Michelle said that rent was $300 plus he had to buy his own food, unless he liked whatever they were making at the time. So Will was free to join them for family dinners and play footsie with Michelle under the table. This is a weird situation, Michelle. And we're to believe there's a chance her husband wasn't totally aware what was going on. I'm not buying it, but that's just me. Willful ignorance can be a powerful thing, though. I think he could. It's like, no, definitely not. Especially because the dude's like not physically attractive, traditionally attractive. So he's probably like, dude ain't a threat. He's like short and bald and fat, and I'm a beautiful man. But as great, albeit awkwardly, as their relationship seemed to be progressing, it wasn't enough. Michelle promised Will that she was going to leave her husband for him, but she was taking a sweet-ass time in doing so. This is a cliche that often comes up in true crime stories all too often, though admittedly, usually with the genders reversed. It never ends well, and if anyone watching this is dating a married person who keeps promising them that they're going to leave their spouse for you, no, they're not. They never do. At least they almost never do, though I have to admit that Michelle seemed pretty sincere in her promise. She even went so far as to give Will her wedding ring as proof that she intended to leave her husband. Yeah, I know people who've been in this situation, and it's like, it's not happening, dude. It's not happening. It's not happening. I don't say that because you don't want to crush someone's dreams. Despite all of this, Will wound up venturing into the world of online dating while he was living in Michelle's house. Of course he did. Although he had never been stationed in Russia with the Marines like he claimed, Will does, for some reason, seem to have been fluent in Russian. Okay, given his love of Russia, it only made sense for him to look for love there. And it was on a dating app that he first met Anna Repkina, a 28-year-old woman from Moscow. Will, what is your life? What is going on? A number of sources like to refer to Anna as a mail order bride, but that's in no way accurate, and it's pretty dismissive of her as a person. Wait, I don't exactly know what a mail order bride is. It's not like you can literally buy a person. So I'm assuming in the American situation, it's like, dude is an American, someone in Russia wants to be an American, and the exchange is that you pay for them to come over and they live with you and get married to you, and it's like quite transactional of a relationship so they can get a green card or whatever. Right? Is that what a mail order bride is, or is it literally like slavery? I don't imagine it is, because it's like, I should make a video about this. Unfortunately, I can't tell you very much about Anna, as I'd like to be able to, because there's very little information available about her, even on Russian websites. What I can tell you is that Anna was born on September the 24th, 1989. She was born and raised in Moscow, eventually attending the State Academy of Slavic Culture. It was there where she earned her degrees in linguistic and intercultural communication, as well as becoming extremely fluent in English. Both her English fluency and intercultural communication degree were extremely helpful in landing Anna what seems to be a pretty sweet office job, working for IKEA's corporate offices in Moscow. She was making good money, much better than Will, and she loved to travel, spend time with her cats, and go to metal concerts. Wow, and like Moscow is not... Where is this? Oregon? Like, I don't... Like, Moscow is not... Is Moscow rich? I feel like it's one of those things where it's like Russia, but Moscow's going to be much richer than the rest of Russia. But let's just do Russia GDP per capita. $15,000. Okay, so US GDP per capita. Just to get us an idea of USA GDP. 15,000 for Russia. 76,000 for America. So let's just say that Russia is getting absolutely... United States is so dominant. It's so dominant. It's just so rich. You Americans are so rich. $76,000. Canada, $54,000. Japan, $33,000. UK, what the fuck is UK GDP per capita? It used to be like the same or better than the US, and that's 46. Oh God, America, your economy is extraordinary. So she's working in Moscow for IKEA and making more money than Will in America. Since she was so intelligent, skilled at English, and the daughter of a teacher, she also spent some of her time tutoring kids of her friends and family in English. And for the previous 7 years, she had also been in a serious relationship with someone in Russia. When the couple broke up, she decided to search for love on the internet, and that is where she met Will. As I said earlier, despite not being particularly attractive, Will was charming, and he knew how to sell Anna on the type of life that she wanted. He showered her with attention and affection, just as he'd done with Michelle, often sending her gifts like flowers mailed from the US. Is that going to work? It's quite far, no? I guess not. Like, yeah, it is far. Like, Moscow's really far, because you're like, oh yeah, America and Russia quite close. Alaska and, Siberia or whatever. But, like, Oregon to Moscow's far. The two hit it off, and they messaged back and forth every day. Those daily text messages turned into video chats, and Anna quickly fell in love. By the end of 2016, it was decided that it was time to come and visit. Anna was going to travel to Oregon to spend 10 days with the man she loved, after one minor hiccup, that is. A whirlwind romance. It was finally December 2016, and Anna's plane touched down in Portland. She was so excited to finally meet Will and be in his arms, but instead of meeting him at the airport, she sent him an angry message on Facebook. Who knows? You have 2 damn Portlands. Oh no! There's another Portland. That's right, she had overshot her flight by 3,000 miles. Flying across the entire United States and landing in Portland, Maine instead of Portland, Oregon. Oh my God, that sucks. Oh, that's so unfortunate. I can certainly excuse her for making this mistake, but Will's reply of, honestly, I didn't even know that, is a bit concerning. Portland is the biggest city in Maine, and probably the only one most people can even name. Wait, what are you talking about? Portland, Oregon is the only one I've heard of. I've never heard of Portland, Maine. Portland is the biggest city in Maine. And it's probably the only one people can... No, wait, I'm not American, Kevin. But I've never heard of Portland, Maine. But I've absolutely heard of Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon is in the northwest, right? That's the one I've heard of. I'm certain. Not to mention that she presumably gave him her flight information so he could meet her at the airport, at which point he really should have noticed this mistake. The idiot probably thinks that Albany, Oregon is the only Albany in the US too. But one more flight and God knows how many hours later, and Anna was finally in the right Portland, meeting Will face to face for the first time. And from the airport, it was time to drive back to Michelle's house in Albany, where Will was still living with a couple that... Will's life is insane. Dude! And the couple will be staying, definitely not a terrible idea idea at all. Will and Michelle, you need to turn your brains on. I can see why you're right for each other. You both don't have fully functional brains. According to Jamie, Will and Michelle's mutual friend, she believed that Will was trying to make Michelle jealous. She promised to leave her husband, but she was taking entirely too long to do it. Perhaps if Will could make her jealous, Michelle would speed things up. That's Jamie's speculation, and it certainly makes sense, though Will's actions at the end of the trip make me question if that was really the case. Anna and Will spent the vacation seeing the sights of Oregon and having a wonderful time together, with most of the time spent back at Michelle's house, being exclusively in Will's room. Dun dun dun! It wasn't until they were about to go out for the night on New Year's Eve that Will even introduced Anna and Michelle. This was pretty much the end of the trip, so by the time she was properly introduced to Anna, she had endured what I can only assume was a week of sex noises coming from her spare bedroom. But hey, at least she now knew how her cock husband felt. But all good things must come to an end, and after 10 days, it was time for Anna to fly home. Before she left, though, Will had a present for her. He wanted to propose to her, and he did so using something deeply sentimental to him. Oh no, he's giving her Michelle's ring, isn't he? Is he? No! What is going on in your brain, Will? He wanted to propose to her, and he did so using something deeply sentimental to him. It was a ring that had been passed down to him from his grandmother. Oh, okay. That's way better, dude. I thought you were going to... Because Michelle had given him her wedding ring to say, like, yes, I'm leaving my husband for you. I thought he was going to give it to Anna. The ring was very special to Will, and he wanted Anna to have it. Anna agreed to marry Will, and I'm sure she found it incredibly sweet that he used his grandmother's ring to propose. Unfortunately, what Anna didn't know is that he was a lying sack of The ring she wore back to Moscow to symbolize Will's promise was the same ring Michelle had given to him to symbolize her promise to leave her husband. I fucking knew it! Yes! That's right, Will proposed to his fiancée using his girlfriend's wedding ring. That is... If this was in a fiction book, I'd be like, nah, this is a bit of a stretch, isn't it? Now that the couple was engaged, it was only natural that Anna should return to Oregon permanently so that the two could begin their life together. Plans were made, and on the 1st of March, Anna would come back to America permanently. Sort of. She was flying back on a guest visa, which would allow her to stay for 6 months. But if the couple got married, she would, of course, get to stay permanently. Is it that easy? Is it really that easy? I thought you'd have to, prove, a relationship. I know people here who've married locals and they've had to prove that their relationship was going on for a long time. It's not just you suddenly get married and they're like, hey, boom, done, easy. If you're wondering why Anna came on a guest visa, which doesn't allow you to work here, that's because she believed she no longer had to work. Will had promised that he would take care of her completely and they were going to start a family together. So Anna believed that she was going to live the dream of every 1950s housewife. Was this a promise that Will could actually keep? Probably not. Well, probably not. I mean, he lives in the spare room of someone's house, which he pays $300 a month for, and sometimes eats with their family. Even though Anna was more successful than Will, it's not like mechanics make bad money, especially mechanics at dealerships. But in this economy, and with Oregon having one of the highest costs of living in the United States, it doesn't seem likely at all. To make matters worse, there was also the very foreseeable problem that Michelle wasn't going to just sit there and take this. To Michelle, Will was still her boyfriend, and it's not like their relationship hadn't continued as normal after Anna flew back to Moscow. Michelle hadn't been thrilled when Anna came to visit for the first time, but she was able to mostly ignore it. But now her boyfriend planned to have his new fiancée come and live with him permanently. Not in her house, he wasn't. He could kiss that sweet $300 per month rent goodbye and go get an apartment somewhere else. Well, yes. I mean, obviously. Unable to continue staying at Michelle's as a couple, Will and Anna rented an apartment in Cornwallis. However, Will continued to split his time between the two women in his life, often staying the night at Michelle's with Anna back alone at their apartment. He justified his long absences by saying that he worked a lot, but Anna began getting suspicious. Yeah, he's just working at night as a mechanic. She wasn't an idiot and could tell that something was going on, but she didn't know about Will and Michelle specifically. Will had gaslit her into believing that Michelle was just a crazy ex-girlfriend who wouldn't leave him alone. Yeah, you lived in her spare room, my dude. It's a little bit weird, isn't it? When Will disappeared for too long, by which I mean a full day at a time, Anna would message his friends on Facebook asking if they knew where he was or why he was disappearing all the time. This was Anna's life for her first 3 weeks, living with her fiancé, but it wasn't enough to dissuade her from seeing this through to the end. Even though she believed something was going on, she was still blinded by love and wanted to spend her life with Will. She had flown back to Oregon with a wedding dress from Russia, and the wedding date was set for March 25th. They were going to drive out to the coast and get married on the beach, and it was going to be miserable. Seriously, I know that the Pacific Ocean isn't the icy pit of despair that the North Atlantic is, but a beach wedding in March still sounds like a terrible idea. Yeah, March is cold and windy and shit, Before that could even happen, though, Anna was going to get an unexpected message on Facebook. She and Michelle had become Facebook friends, allowing Michelle to see the picture of her wedding ring on Anna's hand. But again, Anna had been convinced that Michelle was just a crazy ex that couldn't let go. She told Michelle to stop being a bitch and get out of their lives, ignoring the comments about how they were currently sharing Will. 3 days later, Anna and Will drove to the beach for their wedding. On the way, they stopped at a Walmart so Will could purchase a couple of wedding bands for the day. Classy. And then Walmart sell wedding bands. I feel like even just buy them at Walmart is like, it's Walmart. When they got there, the officiant didn't show up. How could such a thing have happened? It turns out that it's easy for the officiant to forget to show up to your wedding when you never hire them in the first place. Will had picked a date and location, but he never actually filed for a marriage license or tried to book an officiant for the ceremony. And he knew all of that going in, so he made Anna put on her wedding gown and drive with him to the beach for literally no reason. Will is not... Why is he not using his brain and stuff? This is so strange. It's like, do you not think this through? Do you not think about your life more than 5 minutes ahead? It's really weird. Once they were at the beach with no one to conduct the ceremony, Will took out his phone and called a local GameStop for some reason. Okay. I get that his plan was just to put on a show for Anna and their witness to make it look like he was having an angry conversation with the officiant, but why not just call your voicemail or something? Retail jobs already suck enough. There's no need to harass them with angry phone calls that have literally nothing to do with them. But if there was a silver lining to this day, which there wasn't, at least Anna got a beautiful picture taken of her in a wedding gown. And by a beautiful picture, I mean a black and white security footage picture from the McDonald's drive-thru they went to after the beach. This is the only picture of Anna in her wedding dress. I know that Will is supposed to be the successively charming guy that she was in love with, but holy Then again, Anna had no reason to believe that the entire day was a sham. I mean, what sort of man would put on a tux, make her put on a wedding dress, then drag her and two of his friends to the beach for a wedding that he knew wasn't going to happen? Only a deranged sociopath would do something like that, certainly not the man she wanted to marry. The day may have been a bust, but as far as she knew, the officiant had to cancel because he got sick. They were just going to reschedule, and she could finally marry the man of her dreams and start a family together. Michelle, on the other hand, was less than thrilled at all of this. I'm not sure if she was even aware that the fake wedding had been scheduled, but she was sick of Anna being in her way. She and Will texted and called each other constantly, and she kept going back and forth between wanting him to clean the rest of his shit out of her house and leave for good, and wanting him to get rid of Anna so they could be together. Oh my god, your life is so complicated. All of your lives are so complicated. What's going on? It had been a month since Anna moved to Oregon, and Will had been splitting his time between her and Michelle. But enough was enough, and it was time for an ultimatum. Michelle said that Will had to choose one and only one of them, and he said that he chose her. With that promise made, they set a mutual deadline of April 19th. By the 19th, Will had to leave Anna, and Michelle had to leave her husband. Over before it began. The next couple of days were undoubtedly tense. Will kept delaying things with Michelle, telling her that he kept trying to get Anna to move out, but she refused to. And just like Anna had at the beach, Michelle believed his lies. She thought that he really was trying to throw Anna out and make her go back to Russia, but as far as Anna knew, they were a happy couple that was planning to reschedule their wedding. On April the 15th, just a few days before the looming deadline Michelle and Will had agreed upon, Michelle was supposed to come over to Will's apartment for dinner. I'm not really sure what the fuck Will was thinking when he made these plans. Bro, he literally... He doesn't think about his life more than 5 minutes ahead. That's what's happening. Because he was still very much living with Anna. She wasn't working, so unless she was at the gym or out with Will, there wasn't anywhere for her to really be except for that apartment. At 8 p.m. that night, Will texted Michelle to cancel their dinner, saying that Anna, who Michelle thought had finally moved out, had come back and refused to leave. They argued over text for a while, with Will finally sending a text that read, "I'll have this fixed by 1800 tomorrow." Uh-oh. He's going to get murdering, isn't he? It's a weird thing. Allegedly. It's weird that he said it like that, instead of saying by 6 tomorrow or by tomorrow night, but I guess he'd spent so many years lying about being ex-military that it was a habit now. He then shut off his cell phone and grabbed the landline because he had an urgent situation that needed to be dealt with. Will was behind on his car insurance payments, and at midnight the next night, his policy was going to be cancelled for non-payment. This was a big deal because the moment his insurance lapsed, he would lose his car loan and the dealership would be able to immediately repossess his car. Will spent the night trying to negotiate with the insurance company, asking for a 5-day extension so that he could pay them using his next paycheck. Whether or not that was a reasonable request depends on exactly how far behind on his payments he was. But either way, there was nothing the insurance agent could do. She said that once an account was marked as pending cancellation for non-payment, the system wouldn't allow them to change the dates. He had just over 24 hours to pay them, or his car was gone. And since the next day was Easter Sunday, it's not like he could talk to his work to try and get an advance or something like that. Isn't this what those terrible predatory payday loans are for? Isn't this where you go and they have a super high interest rate if you don't pay it back in time? But you just be like, okay, I just need it like a couple of days, and it's expensive, but it's not crazy. And then you get your paycheck and you give them that paycheck and then you figure something out. Right? That's what payday loans are for. But while Will was dealing with his money problems, Michelle was dealing with what she perceived to be the end of their relationship. Even though he promised to have the problem fixed, once Will shut off his phone, she assumed that it meant they were done. She left him multiple voicemails early that morning, crying and saying that she'd leave him alone, but that she just wanted to know why. However, it turns out that she'd misread the situation. Yeah, why are you thinking that? He says he'll have taken care of it by tomorrow. Why are you suddenly, like, you believed him for all of this time? I've given him so much slack and, like, for some reason, insane amounts of slack. Why do you now suddenly not believe him? It's weird. The next day, Will and Anna left their apartment at about 11:30 a.m. and drove to a remote wooded area in Alsea, about 30 miles from their home in Corvallis. Alsea was a logging and fishing community with just over 200 residents at the time, and about half of that now, and the wooded area they drove to was extremely desolate. Occasionally, it was used by locals as a range for target shooting, but in general, nobody ever went there. It was the sort of place you could leave a body and have it go undiscovered for weeks, maybe even longer. Gotta be weird, like, why are we driving out here, Will? What's going on? Why are we in the middle of nowhere? There was no way to know what Anna was thinking during all of this, what lies Will had told her about why they were traveling to the middle of nowhere for Easter. But once they got out of the car, Will allegedly grabbed a shotgun from the back seat and shot Anna in the back of the head. He then decided that this would now be a good time to clear out his car, so he dropped a bag of trash on the ground containing multiple receipts and cigarette butts. What the fuck? What are you thinking? It's like, literally, you are leaving both physical evidence, DNA evidence, the cigarette butts, and also receipts, like, about you spending things and where you've been. And you're just dumping it on the ground in the forest. So you're littering as well as murdering, but you're littering with evidence. What is your life? What are you doing? At 4:35 p.m., Will called Michelle. She was celebrating Easter with her family and her friend Jamie, but she wasn't having the best time. She'd spent the entire night crying over Will, but this phone call was about to change everything. Why? I don't understand. Why doesn't he just, like... Why does he have to murder her? This seems so... I know it's because he's a sociopath or whatever, but, like, why not just, like, break up with her? What's going on? You didn't even try. Will fed her some line about running off the road to avoid a deer and getting a flat tire, saying that he needed help and for her to come and meet him at a convenience store in Alsea. Michelle immediately left her family dinner to go and see him. Will went into the convenience store to buy a soda, candy, and a pack of cigarettes, and then waited for Michelle to arrive. Once she got there, she went to talk to Will, seemingly unconcerned with the fact that his car clearly didn't have a flat tire. Will told her that he and Anna had had a horrible fight that day. He said such mean things that she had grabbed her suitcases and left, implying that she'd finally moved out for good and was presumably headed back to Moscow like Michelle had always wanted. To celebrate, Michelle got into the car with Will so that they could go and park somewhere a little more private, and then they f***ed in the front seat of the car. Oh, this is just not nice. It's worth noting, in the security footage of Will inside the convenience store, there were several dark spots on his head. These spots didn't exist in any other photos, meaning that they weren't moles or other permanent marks. Though it can't be determined for certain, it's quite likely that they were spots of blood. If this were true, it would mean that Michelle left her family's Easter dinner to go and f*** her boyfriend, who was literally covered in Anna's blood. Unsurprisingly, her ex-husband now has full custody of the kids. F***ing good, dude. After the sex, Will dropped Michelle back off at her car, and the two drove home. When Michelle got home, Jamie noticed how her mood had dramatically shifted. She was suddenly so much happier than when she left. But Will had a few stops to make on his way home. First, he stopped at a gas station to withdraw $200 from the ATM. Obviously, he didn't have $200 since he couldn't pay his car insurance, so he withdrew the money from Anna's bank account instead. He then started talking to the gas station employees, crying about how his girlfriend had just left him. One of the employees even gave him a hug. What are you doing? From there, Will drove to a second ATM to take out another $600 from Anna's bank account. That night, he deposited $160 from what he had stolen from Anna into his own bank account. Then he called his car insurance company to make the necessary payment so that his car wouldn't get repossessed. You're so stupid. Holy shit. He then began sending texts to Anna's phone, begging her to come back, or at least to let him know that she was safe. But rather than leaving Anna's phone in her pocket or purse, possibly fearful that it would allow police to track her, he had given the phone to Michelle. Bro, what are you thinking? This is insane. In some regards, Will's behavior comes across as clearly premeditated, and in others, it seems completely impulsive and astonishingly stupid. I think it's very mildly premeditated. I mean, it's like he should definitely be getting executed for this, but like, it's kind of like, I think it's premeditated and he's just dumb. I think it's just dumb premeditation. It's hard to tell how much he had thought the alleged murder through. Probably, I mean, to the best of his ability, and his ability is just not very good. He's just not very capable. But his internet history the next day showed that he was having serious second thoughts about something. Will began doing an internet deep dive on time travel. Though, through any means necessary, science, magic, it didn't matter. All that mattered was that he needed to go back in time and change what happened. Oh my god, the introduction's true. He's so dumb, dude. Time travel isn't real, Will. Magic's not real, Will. You murdered someone, Will, and you gotta go to prison forever. This search eventually led Will to contacting a stranger through WhatsApp, who I guess claimed to be able to use a magic spell to send Will back in time. When asked what the reason was, Will explained that his friend made a horrible mistake and that he had to travel back to 11:30 a.m. the previous day to stop himself from leaving the house so that none of it would happen. Specifically, he said, "I wanted to go back to keep from losing the woman that should be my wife." As for payments for this arcane magic, Will offered his soul, but the WhatsApp stranger stopped replying. Getting trolled by the WhatsApp stranger, my dude. Needing to distract himself, Will went to Walmart with the cash he'd stolen from Anna to buy some video games, candy, and an expensive Lego set. We can say for certain that distraction was his motivation because he texted his friend Kevin Thomas and explicitly said so. He added that he was spending money he shouldn't, though he neglected to mention that he shouldn't because the money was stolen from Anna. Luckily, Will wasn't going to have long to distract himself. Like I said, the area where Anna's body was left was extremely remote. Her body should have gone undiscovered for a long time, possibly long enough that there would be no body left to find. But while Will was researching time travel and buying toys, police were already investigating Anna's murder. A local caretaker in RC stumbled across Anna's body the morning after she was killed while out walking his dog. It was pure random chance, as this was far from the route where the caretaker would normally have been walking his dog, but for whatever reason, that's where he happened to be on that morning. When he first saw the body, he assumed it was a mannequin or something, but it's never a mannequin. After touching Anna's hand and realizing it felt human, he immediately called the police. Wait, I feel like it's never a mannequin is like, surely it's more likely to be a mannequin, because number of mannequins thrown away, large. Number of bodies thrown away, small. Right? Like if I saw a body in the woods, I'd be like, it probably is a mannequin. And I'd go over and it would be a mannequin. And you'd be like, oh, okay. There we go. Or something that looks like a body, but not an actual body. The legal ramifications. Because of the isolated location in which Anna's body was found, police weren't sure what to make of the scene. Obviously, they knew it was murder. But what about all the trash that was around her body? Was that a clue, or was it just unrelated trash that some arsehole left there? They didn't know, but it was the only lead they had to go on, and they were in luck. They found a receipt from KFC in Cornwallis that had the date and time of the order on it, and it was only a few days old. If the trash was connected to Anna's killer, this receipt should lead them right to him. There was another fast food receipt among the trash as well, though it was likely too old to be of any use. It was dated March the 25th, and it was the McDonald's receipt from Anna and Will's supposed wedding day, a heartbreaking reminder of the disappointing reality behind all of Will's lies. But as for the KFC receipt, security footage from the KFC showed that the receipt was one of two orders placed by the same car. One was paid for with cash, but the other was paid for with a credit card under the name Kevin Thomas. Oh, okay, so he's gone out to get KFC with his mate Kevin Thomas, who's paid with card, and Will is paid with cash. The police brought Kevin in for questioning, but he didn't seem to think much of it. And why would he? He hadn't done anything wrong, and he hadn't been informed it was part of a murder investigation. As far as I can tell, all he knew was that the police had found a KFC receipt near a crime scene and were trying to see if it was connected. When asked if he knew anything about the receipt, Kevin said that he and his brother went to KFC every Friday. When he gave them his brother's name, Will Hargrove, because Kevin was another one of Will's supposed brothers in arms. Wait, if you're talking to the police, you wouldn't say your brother. You'd say like a friend of mine. You might refer to him as your brother colloquially and among friends, but not to the police. Why would you say that? The police talked with Kevin a bit longer about Will and how they knew each other. Overall, it was a pretty laid-back interview. They still had no idea what was going on or if the trash was even related to Anna's death, so there's no reason to put the screws to this guy yet. Look, if the police are being laid back with you in an interview, it's not because they're just chill dudes. It's because they think that's the best way to get information from you. If you're in this situation, even if you're innocent, get a lawyer. They'll give you one for free. Get a lawyer, even if you're innocent. Come on now. But because it was such a friendly conversation, Kevin let his guard down. He didn't make the connection between the police being so interested in their trash and Will's recent text about blowing money he shouldn't have to distract himself from something. And why would he? I think it's completely I don't think that's letting his guard down. I think Kevin's just being like, yeah, I'll just tell the truth to the police because I've got nothing to hide. And I don't think anyone I know's got anything to hide. So, whatever. And so while describing what good friends he and Will were, Kevin volunteered that a couple of weeks earlier, Will had asked to borrow his shotgun and still hadn't returned it. When the police asked why he wanted to borrow it, Kevin told him that Will had said he was going to go up and go shooting in the woods and just kind of blow off some steam. Armed with this new information, the police headed straight to Michelle's house where Will was staying. Will answered the door and was told that his name had come up in an investigation. Oh, Will's like, this quickly, guys! I've seen The Casual Criminalist. How did you get me so fast? He told the officers that he and Michelle had driven up to Alsea on Easter Sunday together, stopped at the convenience store, picked up some cigarettes, and driven home. They asked if he had dumped any trash there, and he claimed to have dropped off a bag at the side of the store. At this point, Will probably recognized that he was fucked, but at least he could have had a better lie than that. You know, they found your trash, so you say that you threw it out of the window while you were driving or something like that. That way, at least it might be plausible for it to have blown away to the murder location. Saying that he dropped the box off at the side of a store a reasonable distance from the murder is real fucking stupid. And again, lawyer. A lawyer will prevent you from making these idiotic mistakes. If you are fucking guilty of a murder, you idiot, what are you doing? You can't be doing this. Speaking of really stupid, after this little conversation at Michelle's house, the detectives asked Will to come down to the sheriff's office for a proper interrogation. As he was getting ready to drive down to the sheriff's office, Will sent a text message to Michelle stating, "Picked you up at your mum's, drove to Alsea General Store, drove back." You know, because there's no way the police would ever look at your phone records. Never write anything down that you would want read back to you in open court, that you wouldn't want read back to you in open court in a demeaning tone. Basic criming 101. Come on. It's a phone call. Make a phone call. An encrypted WhatsApp. Did they WhatsApp? Text message. Use WhatsApp. Make an encrypted phone call. Boom. Everyone has WhatsApp on their phone or whatever Americans use, Telegram or something. It's an encrypted call. The police can't access it. No one can access it. Phone her while you're in the car through that encrypted thing. Are you stupid? I mean, the answer is yes, Will is stupid. He's a stupid man. Once the official interrogation began, the discussion quickly turned to Anna. Will tried to lie and say that he barely knew her. According to his statements to the police, he had met her in downtown Cornwallis and the two had only gone on 2 dates together. He claims that she was psychotic and that he broke things off with her after 2 dates because she posted on Facebook that they were engaged. He also claims not to have seen Anna since mid-March, about a month earlier. The detectives weren't buying Will's story for a minute. They explained that his trash was found at a murder scene and that his story was full of inconsistencies. At that point, Will indicated that he wasn't going to keep talking without a lawyer. And that's totally fine. We always say that you should never talk to the police without a lawyer present, even if you're innocent, and Will absolutely had the right to request a lawyer. Of course, that request wasn't going to change the fact that the detectives had both the authority and sufficient cause to tell Will to stand up, put his hand behind his back because he was under arrest for the murder of Anna Repkina. So that's exactly what they did. But hey, at least Will didn't have to say anything else until his lawyer got there. He didn't have to say anything else in the first place. He's just dumb. You don't say anything. Wait for your lawyer. It wasn't until 2018 that he'd be formally indicted, and the trial didn't begin until October 2019. That seems like a long time, but it gave the prosecution plenty of time to find evidence linking Will to the murder. Just a few days after his initial arrest, police found Kevin's shotgun in the back of Will's truck. There was only one set of fingerprints on the gun, with those prints belonging to Will. Wait, so that was happening in 2016, 2017, 2018? So where is he during this time? Is he in jail? Without a conviction? That seems pretty intense time. I mean, he's not going to get bail, right? Because he's a murderer. Like, sorry. He's alleged of being a murderer. So, but then he can be in prison for so long without being convicted? That's not surprising, but it was a big deal considering what Kevin's defense strategy was. They planned to pin the blame on Michelle, saying that Will arranged a meeting in the woods so that Michelle and Anna could talk, and that Michelle grabbed the shotgun from his truck and killed Anna. To say that this was a bold strategy would be a colossal understatement. It's a bold strategy, but it ain't a bad strategy because all you got to do is get that reasonable doubt. The defense would have known that Michelle's DNA and prints were nowhere to be found on the gun. They would have known that security footage from the convenience store in Alsea showed Will making a purchase and waiting in the parking lot until Michelle finally drove up quite a while later. And most importantly, there was the GPS information. Never mind, it's a stupid idea. On the day of the murder, Will made a phone call asking Michelle to come meet him in Alsea. According to the GPS information, this call was made while Michelle was at her family's Easter dinner and while Will was standing over Anna's dead body, or at least standing somewhere in that little clearing. Though the defense could try to argue that Anna was still alive at that point, it was going to be a pretty tough sell. Will was caught on a number of different CCTV cameras over the course of his drive, showing him driving to Alsea with Anna sitting beside him in the passenger seat. When he met Michelle after making the phone call, he was clearly alone in his vehicle. While all of the evidence in the case may have been circumstantial, it was still a very, very strong case. Yeah, agreed. The trial lasted for a month, with roughly 70 witnesses testifying. That number honestly seems extraordinarily high, considering how few people were genuinely involved in this story. But a lot of witness testimony was based on establishing Will's state of mind before and after Anna's murder. But perhaps the most compelling evidence regarding Will's state of mind was the aforementioned WhatsApp conversation with some anonymous sorcerer. Will admitted that he needed to correct a horrible mistake, and he was willing to sell his soul to do it. I feel like he could go for diminished capacity or something here, because he's off his rocker. After the lengthy trial had finally concluded, and both sides made their closing arguments, all that was left was for the jury to deliberate. In complex murder cases, this could take days or even weeks. For Will's case, it took 3 hours. He was found guilty of murder, identity theft, and 2 counts of second-degree theft, the other 3 charges being related to using Anna's ATM card to steal her money. He was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. It's a good long-ass sentence, I like that. Unfortunately, no, that's not where the story ends. On the 16th of August 2023, the Oregon Court of Appeals ruled on Will's case. The defense appealed on 17 assignments of error, but the most important ones involved that WhatsApp conversation. Search warrants can be a difficult thing, especially in the digital age. Most people know that search warrants need to be extremely specific about what evidence the police are allowed to seize, but there is also a plain view exception. For example, if a warrant only allows police to search your house for illegal firearms, but they notice that you left a bunch of 8 balls and your lucky crack pipe on the nightstand in plain view, well, they can seize those too. But what about a digital search? If they had a warrant to search your phone and all electronic communications between you and a specific person, is everything else that happens to be on your phone considered in plain view? I'd say no, unless you open up WhatsApp and you don't scroll down and you see the first line of the conversation looks suspicious. Then you click on it. But otherwise, I'd say no. I think it's very similar to the crack pipe on the nightstand. Interesting bit of law to litigate, though. As with all things related to the law, the answer is it's complicated, but the short answer is no. Because of the massive amount of personal and sensitive information stored on electronic devices, courts have generally been extremely restrictive on what investigators are allowed to take from them. Good, I think that's right. People are entitled to privacy. Honestly, that's for the best. Imagine how up it would be for the prosecution to be going over digital communications sent between a person on trial and their alleged accomplice, only for them to suddenly say, by the way, check out this pic he sent his girlfriend. Would an innocent person send a picture with such poor lighting, and why is it so small? Obviously, that's a ridiculous example, but hopefully the point is still clear. Yeah, it was clear even before. There's a reason that's a thing. Unfortunately, this meant that some of the digital evidence, specifically involving the time travel conversation, was improperly obtained. That wouldn't be necessarily enough to reverse the verdict by itself, as improperly obtained evidence can still ultimately be deemed harmless. In this case, however, the appeals court ruled that it was definitely not harmless. Although there was a lot of indirect evidence and second-hand testimony regarding Will's state of mind, the WhatsApp conversation was the only direct evidence of his state of mind and was thus far more powerful than the other evidence. Not only that, but both the prosecution and defense referenced this conversation in their closing arguments, with the defense claiming that Michelle was the friend that did a bad thing, indicating that both sides clearly felt it was an important piece of evidence for the case. So, thanks to fucking time travel, Will was granted a retrial for the murder charge, and thus is only allegedly a murderer, despite his prior conviction. On the bright side, he'll be awaiting that second trial from prison, because the other 3 charges were upheld. And even without the few pieces of digital evidence that will be excluded from the retrial, unless his defense team can come up with a much more compelling strategy this time, I find it hard to believe that the verdict is going to be any different the second time around, because in my personal opinion, Will is guilty as in your personal opinion, Kevin. Guess whose personal opinion is mine as well? Mine! But it's just a personal opinion. It's not a statement of fact. It never could be. Thank you. Wrap up. Anna Repkina was an intelligent, kind woman who was just trying to find love. She thought she'd found it with Will, so she abandoned her stable and prosperous life in Russia to move halfway around the world for a man who she believed was going to start a family with her. Sadly, everything Will told her was a lie, including how he got the ring he used to propose to her. That said, it's hard to know exactly how much blame Michelle needs to share with Will, if any. If the original verdict was correct, and Will was in fact Anna's murderer, as all the evidence seems to suggest, then obviously the brunt of the blame is on him. Michelle didn't put the gun in his hands, nor did she ever explicitly tell him to kill Anna. Whether or not she implicitly told him to is a matter of debate. But either way, she was definitely putting a tremendous amount of pressure on him to take care of things one way or the other. On the other hand, Will was already dating and living with Michelle and her husband and their kids. It was a weird and fucked up arrangement, but he had full knowledge of what the situation was when he signed up for it. There shouldn't have been any reason for him to join a dating app and involve Anna in any of this mess in the first place. And one could argue that Michelle's level of anger and jealousy over the situation was completely justifiable. Yeah, Michelle's got her own problems, for sure, but yeah, of course she'd be pissed off. I'm not sure that I would personally go that far, but I can at least see the argument. Yeah, fully agree, Kevin. But we're not here to provide you with answers to these sorts of complex moral questions. Whether or not she is in some part morally responsible, there is no evidence to suggest that Michelle is in any way legally responsible. That allegedly falls entirely on Will, who with any luck will die in prison, and hopefully soon. Allegedly. Yeah, no, this is Will's fault. This is Will's fault. Will is the big kid, allegedly, in today's episode. And Michelle's like a more minor kid. And that's kind of it, isn't it? Thanks for being here.